Hi guys, welcome back. So today's video is all about Saint Laurent pouches. I have my little collection of Saint Laurent clutches right here, and I'm going to be sharing my thoughts on all these styles. So I'm going to be comparing them against each other, showing you what can fit, pros and cons, and all that good stuff. So I hope you guys enjoy this, and let's get started. So the styles I have here are the Saint Laurent Calypso pouch, I have the Saint Laurent wristlet, I have the envelope clutch, and I also have the Gaby as well. The Gaby isn't quite the same style as the other ones, but it is around a similar price point, so I thought I'd also compare this one as well in case you were considering it in amongst the other styles. So going in price order, and my envelope clutch is by far the most expensive, so this comes in at £1,185 I believe. I'm not sure of the prices in USD, but I will pop those on screen, and it is definitely a pricey bag. Like, this is not cheap at all, but I do think that you're getting quite a lot of quality for your money. It feels like a substantial bag style. Mine is actually the older one because I got mine like 8 years ago, so mine's really quite old, and they've kept this style pretty much the same except for the interior. So my one has all the card slots on both sides. It's just an insane number of card slots, and I have a lot of cards, and I just could never even begin to fill up this bag with all the cards I have. Like, there's just too many slots. The newer ones, they have reduced that, so they only have one side of card slots, which is a much more sensible design decision, and I think it just makes a lot more sense. So it's pretty much the same in terms of the dimensions and the overall look. The only difference is the interior. This one does come with a chain which is fully removable too, so if you wanted to just wear it as a clutch you can do, but you can also utilize the chain to wear it as a crossbody or as a shoulder bag. One thing to note about this chain as well is it's quite possibly the most substantial chain I have ever felt. Like, it honestly is so incredibly weighty to the extent where it's maybe a little bit too heavy. Like, it's nice to have quality, and it certainly does feel like quality, but it just feels a bit unnecessary, and it does add a little bit of weight to the bag if you are just tucking it in. And for me, like, it's nice to have that heavyweight nature, but I could probably do with it being half the weight that it is, and I still think it would be very nice quality. So I guess that kind of depends on your viewpoint, but it's definitely a very heavy chain, and that does add to the weight of the bag when you're just tucking it in. You do have that very handy and smooth zip right there in center, which is always really nice, and of course you do have the two wide compartments there in addition to the card slots. Apart from that, it is just the very standard Saint Laurent look, so you have that really lovely grain leather, and I always feel like the grain leather on these bags is just such a USP of this style. It is pretty much indestructible. That is with the exception of burn marks. I burnt this bag on a candle at a wedding, very sad, so it doesn't protect it against flames, but everything else, it's pretty much been wiped clean. It's a very robust and low maintenance leather, and you do have that very classic YSL there. And it's just a gorgeous looking clutch, you know, very classic, very timeless, and it really does feel super luxurious and very high quality. Next up is the Saint Laurent Gaby. This one comes in at £1,065, so slightly less than the wallet-on chain. I would say though that considering they are in the same price range, when you just feel them in your hand, this one definitely feels a lot more substantial. The leather feels more robust, there's more structure to it, and of course you do have that added weight because of the chain. So if you're just judging it based on feel, then this certainly does feel like a much higher quality bag, but I also think it's probably worthwhile considering that this is a different style, and I'm not sure you'd want anything that heavyweight for a crossbody style. This one is still a full leather bag. It's actually a very nice lambskin. It's very plushy, but despite that, there is a little bit of distressing to the leather, so it actually wears very well. It's not super smooth, so it does a lot in terms of disguising any flaws. I've had mine now for well over a year, and it still looks very good. You know, I can't really find any obvious flaws with it at all. There's maybe a little bit of wear to the fabric zip, but in terms of the leather, it's looking really good, and it does just wipe clean. So I've been really impressed with the leather so far. It does open up with a zip like that, and I like the fact that the zip does go all the way down the side. So I always think that it makes such a big difference in terms of how easy the bag is to access, how easy it is to get your items in and out, and just little details like that can really improve your overall experience of a bag, and that's absolutely the case with this one. It is a very tiny bag, but you can actually fit in an okay amount. You know, it's certainly not one of those bags where you might as well not bother. Like, you can fit in your essentials. There is like nothing to the inside though. There's no pockets or anything like that. It's literally just a wide open space, and you do have that nice leather lining. You do have an adjustable leather strap, but it is a combo chain and leather strap, which I always kind of like because I just feel like it's a little bit more versatile. You can dress this up if you want to as well. But I would say that in terms of the overall look, it is a little bit more casual. So if you wanted to wear this M running, for example, I definitely think you could do. Whereas I'm not sure the same could be said of the wall-on chain, which just generally feels like a more formal style. And then coming in at £735, I have my Saint Laurent Calypso pouch. This is the newest one in my collection, and I believe it's a new release from Saint Laurent. This is part of their Calypso pouch line. So there is also a smaller one and also an oversized one as well. So this one sits squarely in the middle, but the other two, they look like they're part of the same bag line, if that makes sense. So it's basically a baby version and a shrunk down version. This, however, is longer and shorter. So it kind of feels like it's part of a different bag line, even though it's the same material and it is part of the Calypso line. So I'm not totally sure why they did that, but for me this size was the obvious choice just because I thought it was the most wearable. It fits really nicely under your arm, and it's just a nice neat size to hold. You know, it isn't too statement making, but it does still hold a decent amount of items. The absolute USP of this bag is the wonderful leather. It is so incredibly soft. It's just the plushiest thing. You could genuinely use this as a pillow. That's the level of soft that it is. It's pretty much gonna be the world's most expensive pillow, but you could if you wanted to. It is just gorgeous. And if you're familiar with the Saint Laurent puffer line, it has a very similar feel to that, but it's actually even softer. I would say though that this is a smooth leather, so it does show wear a little bit more than a distressed leather, but actually it's been doing pretty well. I did get a mark on it the other day. I just wiped it clean and you could never tell that it was there. I do think that if you got a really bad scratch on it, you could buff it out, but I think you're definitely going to see that because again, there's no disguising it with a smooth leather, but I do think the scratch would have to be pretty bad. And so far, you know, there are a few marks here and there, but it just kind of blends into the leather and there's just nothing really to cause me alarm. So even though I was on high alert for the leather on this bag, I've actually been pleasantly surprised, and by far the softness and how luxurious it feels is absolutely a pro and kind of balances out any concerns I have about the durability. It just opens with a zip right there. The one thing I would say is that I would much prefer a bigger or a more substantial zip because it's just a little bit tiny, and for me this kind of reminds me of a cosmetic bag zip, whereas I would want something a little bit more substantial usually on an actual bag. So that is my one little bugbear with this. It's not a big deal, but it is a personal preference. And then you have one card slot right there on the back. It is fully lined in leather, which to be honest, I don't really understand how they've done that because it is an incredibly light bag. It just feels like nothing at all. And because of that, it's kind of a pleasure to use. Like, it really does feel like a very luxurious bag. And that's even in comparison to the wall-on chain, which is quite a bit more money. It's very different because obviously that's a grain leather, but this does feel just as luxurious, just a different kind of bag. So I have been really, really happy with mine. I think it's absolutely gorgeous. And so far the leather has been doing very well. And then I do have my Saint Laurent wristlet here as well. This one doesn't actually have the wristlet attached to it anymore because the little attachment broke. I don't really take that as a comment on the quality of the bag. I just didn't pack it correctly. It just kind of came apart my luggage, so that's really on me. And I've been meaning to fix it, to be honest, but I mainly use this as a clutch, so there hasn't really been a burning platform for me to do so. Nevertheless, I still get a lot of use out of this bag and I absolutely love it. I think it is so fantastic. It does look very, very similar to the wall-on chain, but it is a fraction of the cost. It's actually less than half the price, even though again it does look very, very similar. So you have that really nice Saint Laurent pattern in the leather. It is a grain leather as well, so it is very, very hardy. I actually got a big dollop of ketchup on this last summer, and honestly I don't even remember where it was. I was so concerned it was going to stain, especially the stitching. But genuinely, I have no idea which side it was on. It just kind of disappeared. I obviously did clean it with a wet wipe and some cleaning products, but yeah, it is just very, very robust, very hard wearing, and I've just been so thrilled with this bag. It does just open up like so, and the interior is definitely where you see the quality difference, especially if you hold them both side by side. There's just a huge difference in weight and just a huge difference in terms of how the bags feel. The wall-on chain comes with a leather lining, whereas this one comes with a fabric lining. It is very light as a result of that, but if I'm being really honest, it does feel like a cheaper bag because of the fabric lining. So that is definitely something to keep in mind. The back is completely plain, nothing else to it. This one doesn't come with a chain, but you can definitely purchase a chain if you want to. I've used my Senrev chains with this, and I think it works beautifully. And of course you do have that wristlet element too. And then two other styles which I don't have here but I did previously own are one, the Uptown clutch, and when this first came out I believe it was priced more around the £300 mark, and for the price point I thought it was unbelievably good value. You know, you're still getting a very luxurious bag. It wasn't the most practical because it was a very slimline, but you got that classic Saint Laurent look, and for an actual proper little pouch from Saint Laurent, I just thought that the price couldn't be beat. It's now increased to around £460, I believe, which when you compare that to the wristlet, I just don't think it represents that good value anymore. You know, just for £90 more, you can get an actually substantial and really functional little wristlet. So for me, I would always go for the wristlet over the Uptown clutch. Similarly, there is the smaller version of this style, which is priced at £815, I believe. But that one is really quite small. It's a little bit more suited to wearing crossbody because this one has a slightly shorter chain. So while you can wear it crossbody, it definitely does sit a little bit higher. So for me, this is most suited to wearing just on the shoulder, whereas the smaller version is designed to be worn as a crossbody bag. That said, it really is very tiny. Even when it comes to wallet on chains, it is quite small. You lose a little bit of width there, and for the price point, I think there are better options. You know, I'd rather pay a bit more and get a little bit more width, or otherwise save my money and get something like the wristlet. Okay, doing some mod shots now. So I have here my Saint Laurent wallet on clutch, which it does look really nice as a clutch and it fits very nicely in the hand. But I would say that this one is probably a little bit less suited than the others to wearing as a clutch, simply because if you tuck the chain in, which I do most of the time, it just feels quite heavy and it's not quite as comfortable to wear as a clutch or tucked under the arm, especially because the weight does mean that it slips a little bit. And it's just not best suited to that if you tuck the chain in. If you take it off, it's much lighter, but to be honest, most of the time I just tuck it in. And this is what it looks like just on the shoulder. And to me, this is kind of the perfect length. Like, I really like this length. I think it's not too short, it's not too long. I would say though that because I think it's the perfect length just by the shoulder, it looks a little bit short, I think, crossbody. Obviously that's going to depend on your torso length and also your height. I'm 5'7" for reference, but I do feel like whilst it's really nice on the shoulder, it does look a little bit short crossbody. And again, personal preference, if you do like your bags to sit higher up, this might be perfect for you. But for me, I very rarely wear it like this. It also feels a little bit too dressy for me to want to wear it crossbody a lot. So my main ways of wearing it are just on the shoulder or otherwise as a clutch. And then here is the Saint Laurent Gaby, which is just such an adorable little style. This one is adjustable too, so you can have it exactly as you like, which is really, really nice. I think it does look great on the shoulder. Definitely a mini bag, but yeah, just a really cute little style. And this is what it looks like crossbody. Again, you do have the benefit of the adjustable buckle, so you can adjust the height and length to suit you. And yeah, just an adorable little style. The Saint Laurent Calypso pouch, on the other hand, is extremely comfortable to wear as a clutch, which is just as well because it's the only way you can wear it. There is no chain, no wristlet or anything like that, so you really can only wear it just like in the hand or otherwise tucked under your arm. But because it's so light, it is just so comfortable to wear. It's like a pleasure to use, it really is. It doesn't feel like anything at all. It also stays very nicely as well. I wouldn't have thought that'd be the case because the leather is so smooth, but actually there's a lot of grip on it, and yeah, it's just kind of great. So no issues in terms of actually using it as a clutch. I feel like it's very functional. I love holding and feeling the leather, and yeah, I just think it's gorgeous. And then I have my Saint Laurent wristlet, minus the wristlet bit, unfortunately. But obviously if you do have that attachment, then you can just wear it looped over your hand. It fits very nicely in your hand as a clutch though, because it is so lightweight, very, very comfortable. It also doesn't slip down when you just pop it under your arm. And yeah, it's just very functional. It's a fairly small style, but I just love this one. Really, really chic. And yeah, it's just very, very easy to carry and very low maintenance. Sharing with you what can fit inside each style now, and I would say that a little bit of distortion is necessary with pretty much all of these bags, simply because they are so slimline. You know, you can't fit that much in, so if you don't stretch the bag out a little, then you're not going to be able to fit anything in really. I have found, however, that because the bags are so structured, any distortion is not permanent and it's very much temporary, so I don't mind doing that to make the bags a bit more functional. Inside, I literally just have a compact, a lipstick, and my phone. You could definitely swap out the compact compact fret little coin purse. Personally, I don't use card holders or coin purses with these styles because they are essentially designed to be wallet on chain. So, you know, you have in here so many card slots, a zipped compartment there, like you really don't need to use a card holder. It is supposed to be designed as that. So that's pretty much it. I will also sometimes forego the compact, which does save a little bit of space as well, but my phone is obviously necessary. I will always take cards and cash with me, and I'll usually take a lipstick and just pop in my keys as well, which does me perfectly fine for a night out. The Saint Laurent Gaby fits the same amount as the Calypso pouch, but with a bit less room to spare, and you can see there is a little bit of distortion right there at the top. Again, I haven't had too many issues with this bag kind of staying a particular shape, so it does bounce back, so I'm happy to stretch it a little bit if I need to. And then inside I have just fit in my lipstick, the compact, and then the same coin purse or card holder and my phone. So definitely not a super huge bag. I do tend to use this kind of as a wallet on chain replacement, but with a bit less organization, so a card holder is more necessary. The Saint Laurent Calypso pouch is actually probably the roomiest style that I have here because of the length and also lack of divider, which really does make a huge difference. So inside I have 4 items, and actually there's a fair bit of room up top there. So if I wanted to pop on some sunglasses, I definitely could do as well. So I just have a little card holder right there. I have a lipstick, my phone too, and then the compact as well, and that wasn't a stretch by any means. So this is actually probably the most roomy. Obviously you are missing the internal organization, so a card holder or a coin purse is probably a bit more necessary, but it can fit a surprising amount. And then I do have my Saint Laurent wristlet here as well, and again this one is stretched out a little bit, nothing too crazy, and in my experience this bag does also bounce back too, so I don't really ever have concerns about this bag and the wear and tear. And then on the inside it fits the same as the Calypso and the Gaby, maybe with not as much room to spare as the Calypso. As I mentioned, you probably could fit in sunglasses in the Calypso, whereas you really couldn't here. So the compact, the lipstick, card holder, and then the phone as well. One thing to note about the wristlet is that again there's no internal organization, so a card holder is much more necessary. So in terms of my ranked order, I am going to go ahead and place the most expensive one last, and I feel a bit bad because this bag has been with me so long and I actually do really like it, but I also think it's kind of credit to Saint Laurent that there are so many nice options at more affordable price points that I just feel like this is kind of a little bit redundant. Like, it is really nice, and if having the absolute best quality is really important to you, then certainly go for this one. But it's a very, very similar looking bag, and yes, I mentioned that there is a quality difference which you can tangibly feel, but I only wear one bag at a time. Like, it really doesn't bother me that this has a fabric lining. In general, I actually probably prefer fabric linings because they are much lighter and just more comfortable to wear as a result. And, you know, I do mostly care about how a bag looks, you know, and I obviously don't want a bag to feel overly cheap, but I don't think that's the case with this. You know, yes, the lining feels a lot less expensive than this one, but again, it just doesn't really matter to me. So when you take into consideration that there is hardly anything in it in terms of the general look, and then you also factor in the price difference, for me, the wristlet is an absolute no-brainer. The only thing that the original wallet on chain had over the wristlet was the color selection. You were able to get these in a whole host of colors, whereas this one only came, I think, in 2. That is no longer the case. I think there is an equal number of colors available in both styles, and for me, just a no-brainer. I would go for this any day of the week. You can now get this in the blush pink with the gold hardware as well. You can get it in black, taupe, I think a grey color, just so many different shades. And I just think it's absolutely fantastic. The only thing that you might want to consider is if you do go to a lot of events and you really value being hands-free and you don't particularly like wristlets. So if you definitely wanted a strap option, you didn't want to do a makeshift option with a chain attached to the wristlet, that might sway you to this one. But for me, I don't mind a wristlet. I'm happy to tuck things under my arm. And if I really wanted a chain, I'm happy to attach a different one. So that's something you might want to consider, but for me this one definitely comes last because I just don't think the value is there when you compare it to other options in Saint Laurent's line. My next choice is the Saint Laurent Calypso pouch, and to be honest, I really debated on where to place this because I actually think it's kind of great. The only thing that kind of scores it negatively for me is the size of the zip, which I know seems like such a small thing, but it really does give me cosmetic bag vibes because it's so small and it's just like a tiny zip. I don't get it. But honestly, that's my only little bugbear with it. I think it's done really well. Obviously, this is a newer one as well, so time will tell if it will look this good in 2 or 3 years time, but so far I've been really happy with it. It does just feel like such a gorgeous, luxurious clutch. Like, it really is a pleasure to hold, but it's obviously just a clutch style. There aren't any other ways to wear it. £735 isn't a small amount of money either, so it would be nice to have a little bit more versatility. So while I do still really like it, and if you're after a really plushy leather clutch, this I think is a really wonderful option. I do think that maybe my other two score a little bit higher for versatility. And then I have my Saint Laurent Gaby coming in at number 2, and this really is a great little style. I think that it is maybe priced a little bit on the high side. When I got it, it was under £1,000, which I think was a more well-suited price point for this bag because it is very tiny. Like, it's not a huge style at all. I would say because of that, it's maybe a little bit limited in terms of seasonality. I often find when it comes to the winter months, I don't want to go for my super small bags because it can sometimes look a little bit out of proportion with heavier layers, chunky knits, coats, that sort of thing. I don't want my bag to look comically small, so I tend to avoid wearing this when I do start wearing more layers, but that's also probably a personal preference. Apart from that, I think it's kind of great. It comes in a few different colours, so I know there's a white, there's a beige, maybe there's another one. I obviously went for the black. It does have really nice kind of almost vintage Chanel-esque vibes with that lovely YSL, the really gorgeous lambskin, and even though it is a soft lambskin, it doesn't feel overly delicate. You definitely are aware of that with the Calypso pouch. This has a little bit of distressing on it, so hard wearing. I like the adjustable strap, and it's just a nice little option. It's not the cheapest. I do think that the price increase was maybe a little bit ill-advised, but nonetheless, considering the rest of the luxury market and actually how nicely made it is, I do think this is a solid buy. And then coming in at number 1 is my Saint Laurent wristlet. As you might have gathered, I'm a huge fan of this. I just think it's such a fantastic style. Comes in a rainbow of colours now, obviously just based on the popularity of this. And I think it's just priced really well. It doesn't feel like the most heavyweight bag, but I think that's also like a nice usability feature of the style. I don't want my bags to be super heavy, especially as, this is a bit of a summer style for me. I take it away on holiday. Do I want something really heavy and clunky? Not really. I want something lightweight that's low maintenance, that still looks very luxurious, and this just ticks all those boxes, and I've been so happy with mine. So I would absolutely say that this is by far my favorite. I think it's by far the best value as well, and if I was picking amongst all of these, including the ones that I don't own anymore, this just is so far ahead of the others. I just think it's fantastic, and for the price point, I don't think you can beat it. I would also say I think this is probably the most decisive I have ever been when it comes to these kind of comparison videos. And I don't sit on the fence, but I do try and be very mindful of the fact that people have different budgets and lifestyles and needs for their bags. So, just because I like a bag doesn't mean that it's going to be super well suited for someone else. But I feel like this style, especially when you compare it to the others, I just think it would work with so many different people, and it's just such a clear winner. So yeah, I'm a fan, and it was just an easy call to make in terms of which one I consider the best. So that wraps up this video, guys. I hope that you enjoyed it, you found it useful. I hope I covered everything that you wanted to know. If I missed anything out, if you have any other questions for me, then leave me a comment down below. If you enjoyed the video, please give this a thumbs up, and as always, thank you so much for watching. I will see you in my next one. Bye, guys.